My name is William Bryce Wasson. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona in 1923. My early childhood, it was a very happy time in my life. My father read poetry. My mother was a pianist, could play the piano beautifully by ear. A warm family. My parents loved me very much. We'd go and take the boys in a detention home to Mass on Sunday, take care of them and then take them back again. So one day he took me with him, and I was about 8 years old. And when I got out to the detention home, I found they were all sort of free and they'd run around. But one boy was in the cage. It's like a huge bird cage that had been built for him. And he was a runaway. His only crime was that he ran away. And it haunted me. I'll never forget the look in his eyes. The loneliness, he was just cut off completely from humanity. So then I started thinking about that, and then later in prep school, I got together with another classmate and one of the priests, and we would go to visit the prisons and the homes for children where they were detained. And I realized that it was a tremendous calling. So I felt called to do that all through the seminary. I always believed that the church and everyone was trying to help the poor and was trying to save people and help them. My time in the seminary, we were not allowed to read newspapers or secular magazines. So we were cut off from the real world for about 8 years through philosophy and theology. And so I was very naive. I thought that everyone was blessed with the same blessings that I was blessed with. And I left the seminary and I had my 2 degrees, and so my father gave me the first $100 bill that I'd ever seen in my life. And he said, take this, and he said, go down south to Mexico and rest for a week or 2 down there. So I did. I decided to get a job and stay there. Took a course in Mexican history, short course. And then I got a job as teaching criminology at the University of the Americas. And then they gave me a job as counselor at the American School Foundation. So I had 2 jobs. And that went on for about a year or so. And still, I would go to Mass every morning, but the door didn't open. And then suddenly, a teacher, a Benedictine monk, who had taught me at the seminary in the States, came to visit me, and I was surprised. And he asked me a very pointed question. He said, did you still want to become a priest? And I said, yes, but I said, no bishop will ordain me. Well, he said, I want you to come down to Cuernavaca in Morelos, and I want you to talk to the bishop there because he needs priests. So I did. I went down to the bishop, and he asked me about my condition, and I told him. And he said, well, can you get a letter from a doctor saying that it's not all that bad and that you can continue working for some years or something, whatever. So I had a very friendly doctor. I got a letter from him of recommendation, and the bishop accepted it. Once I was ordained a priest, he put me in a little tiny church in the marketplace. It's called the Church of the Poor. And in there, I found that I could work like a chaplain, and I rented a little apartment, and I would go back and forth to the church. When I arrived at the church, the sacristan, who was married and was living upstairs in rooms up above, he rushed down to me and he said, Father, he said, a thief came in last night and stole money from the church. A church thief. And of course, in Latin America, nothing worse than a church thief. So the next morning, right away, before I could even get in the door, The sacristan came rushing up with smiles. He said, "We caught the thief. We caught the thief." And he said they took him to jail. I was required to go and do something, so I asked to see the thief, and I found out it was a boy 15. So I talked to the boy and I said, "Look, if I'm able to get you out of here, would you stay with me and go to school and obey me just as you would of your real father, not your stepfather, your real father?" And he broke down and he said, "Yes." He said, I will. And he did. He came and he was with me for 4 years. In the meantime, 3 days after I had taken him, they brought me 8 more children from the city jail. So I rented an old abandoned house, and we got all kinds of mattresses and used beds, and I prevailed upon a parishioner to pay the first month's rent, which was 1,000 pesos. And then I got a little help from here and there. And then I would go to the local hotels where they had restaurants, and they would give me the leftover soup. And the leftover soup, of course, during the night would collect bugs and things. But we'd take it back and take out the bugs and heat it up real hot and have that with tortillas. And that was our first meals. My motto has always been, a child is only good because of somebody. You can teach him all of the religion in the world, but he's not going to be good unless it's because of somebody in his life that he wants to copy, some hero who is good. That's the only way to lead a child to goodness, is because of somebody. When I first began the Pequeños Hermanos, I planned to make it biblical because of my great love for Scripture. And so I planned to have 12 children, honor of the 12 apostles. But then so many children came and were referred to us. They were orphaned, abandoned, with no place to stay, that finally I decided to have 72 in honor of the 72 disciples. And then it kept growing and growing and growing until it became almost 500. Out of control, but what I would do is to travel a great deal, and I would travel among wealthy people, try to find their names and approach them and to get donations. With regard to fundraising, if it's done personally, if it's done through advertisements, if it's done through mailings, the best way is to touch people's hearts. Facts are very important, that they know the facts. But unless you touch their heart, they're not going to do anything. And I don't mean that by false propaganda at all, but just showing them pictures of the children when they come, explaining their lives and their problems and their tragedies. That touches their heart, and then they give. It's just as simple as that. We were offered a chance to go into Haiti, which is the poorest country in the world. I mean, it's devastated. So we went into Haiti and ended up buying a piece of property way up in the mountains where it's cool for the children, for the orphaned, abandoned children to be, away from the city slums and the city streets and so forth. We went into Guatemala, into Nicaragua, and then into El Salvador. Now we're making plans to go into the Dominican Republic and do something there, and the same thing in Belize. All of these children are there, broken homes, on the street, no education, no hope for any kind of a future. A good padrino is a person who shows constancy. In other words, they're not 1 year a padrino and the next year somewhere else. We take our Padrino program very seriously as godparents. We have them write to the child, we have the child write back to them, and very often it ends up very, very well because they're able to send good advice to the child. The child is pleased because they're getting a letter from somebody important that loves them. And then our regular donor program is also helps very much with our economic problems. We have to pay salaries, we have to pay for the food, the electricity, everything. We have to do all of those things. Our total budget now is probably about $12 million. And it's a constant struggle to increase it. I know the solution might be to just not take any more children. But once you stop growing, you begin to die. Not only physically, but spiritually. The children are there, they need our help. They're God's children. I always have faith and hope that He will see to their needs. And He always has. The greatest event in the last century, in my mind, was the appearance of Mohandas Gandhi. He had memorized the Sermon on the Mount from his youth, could quote it verbatim, as much of the Gospels. And so he built his whole idea of satragaha on this principle, that love will always win out in the end. Maybe not right away, but at the end, love is always stronger than hatred. And that's the ideal for the Christian. And that was Gandhi's ideal too. He accepted that, and he also made it active nonviolence. There's a difference between the two. There's the violence, and there's the active nonviolence. People who are nonviolent are just people who hide away and don't do anything. But active nonviolence means that you will get right in there and do good while other people are doing evil. I found out in life that if you want to change the world, you have to start with the children. And it has to be not only changing children, but changing their heart. I mean, Erasmus of Rotterdam, where we are right now, believed that education would change people. But it's been proved otherwise. People with high educations are not necessarily more merciful at all. They can be just as hard-hearted as anyone else. So I think that we need to begin, if we're going to change the world at all, I believe that we have to start with children, and we have to start in changing their